Good afternoon, good evening. I'm Teresa Alameen, based in Columbus, Georgia, the home of Fort Benning in Windsec, as well as the stolen land of the Muskogee Creek Nation. This is the second Women in Conflict Zones webinar. This 2026 Women in Conflict Zone webinar is sponsored by the Convention for Pan-Africanism and Progress, the International Peace Bureau, the Southern Anti-Racism Network, World Beyond War, and in addition, School of America's Watch. Our first Women in Conflict Zones of 2025 of March was sponsored by Convention for Pan-Africanism and Progress, International Peace Bureau, Southern Anti-Racism Network, and World Beyond War. That webinar covered the Middle East, Africa, and Eastern Europe. This webinar is focused on Africa and Latin America to bring attention to the major military commands that are exercising imperialism in the Western Hemisphere and in Africa. So we do have a speaker who will lead us off with an explanation of why these military commands have no boundaries in terms of how they move about the world with their militarization. So thank you very much for being here. Sean Connor of International Peace Bureau and Greta Zaro of World Beyond War will handle the Q&A, and George Friday, my sister comrade in Southern Anti-Racism Network, will introduce the speakers. Again, welcome and thank you for being here.
Hello, everyone. Glad you're here. Our first speaker is Ann Wright. And Ann is a retired U.S. Army Reserve colonel and a 29-year veteran of the Army and Army Reserves. She was a diplomat in Nicaragua, Grenada, Somalia, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Sierra Leone, Micronesia, Afghanistan, and Mongolia. She received the State Department Award for Heroism for her actions during the Civil War in Sierra Leone. She resigned from the Department of State on March 19th, 2003, in opposition to the Iraq War. Ann, you have 10 minutes.
Well, thank you very much for the kind invitation to be here with you. First, my apologies for the actions of my government, the United States, in the current war on Iran, the assassination of 40 members of the leadership of Iran, including the Ayatollah Khamenei and his family, and on January 3rd, 2026, the kidnapping of President Nicolas Maduro and former National Assembly President and former Attorney General of Venezuela, Celia Flores, who happens also to be the spouse of Nicolas Maduro. The actions of the government of the United States continue to be illegal, unlawful, and dangerous to the world. We, the people of conscience in the U.S., are trying our best to figure out how to stop the murderous Trump regime. And I'll just show you my T-shirt right now. I'm wearing for that. But so far, we've been unsuccessful. But as you can see from the protests all over the United States, we are not giving up. I thank you for the opportunity to give a brief 10-minute overview of the U.S. military in Central and South America and in Africa. And as George said, I worked in both Latin America and in Africa as a U.S. government employee. Before resigning from the U.S. government 23 years ago in March of 2003, in opposition to the U.S. war on Iraq, I had been assigned as a military officer to the U.S. Southern Command, and also as a U.S. diplomat, I was assigned to U.S. embassies in Nicaragua and Grenada. In Africa, as a U.S. diplomat, I was the deputy ambassador at the U.S. Embassy in Sierra Leone, and later was seconded to the UN operations in Somalia in 1993 and 94 as the chief of the Justice Division of UNISOM. I'm going to share a screen real fast here. I hope this thing works. Okay, share. Okay. So we're talking about women in conflict zones, and we definitely have a lot. And to show, this is a map of the U.S. military commands that have divided the world into areas of influence. The U.S. Southern Command covers Central and South America, and while the Africa Command covers the countries in Africa. Each command is conducting dangerous military operations in its respective areas. And I'll just mention, I've returned just a few days ago from fact-finding missions in Cuba in January and Venezuela in February. And I'll be returning to Cuba in March as a part of a large international solidarity delegation. For the Southern Command, let's go. The U.S. Special Operations personnel are targeting and blowing up fishing boats that have allegedly been carrying narcotics, yet the Trump administration will not provide evidence, and the few survivors of the attacks have proven to be fishermen, not narco traffickers. These operations have been challenged by people inside the U.S. military. The head of the Southern Command, Admiral Halsey, questioned the legality of the assassination actions and was forced out of his position after only 1 year and a 3-year assignment. The kidnapping of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro was orchestrated by the U.S. Southern Command and the U.S. Special Operations Command. For years, the Southern Command, as Teresa has mentioned, in Columbus, Georgia, at Fort Benning, for years, the U.S. Southern Command had first had an educational facility located in Panama for personnel from the militaries in Latin America. In Panama, it was called the School of the Americas. When the U.S. Southern Command moved from Panama to the continental United States, the School of the Americas was moved to Fort Benning, and the name of the school was changed to the Western Hemispheric Institute for Security Cooperation. My apologies for the interpreters, because that's a lot to interpret. The School of the Americas and WINSEC trained some of the leaders of the death squads that operated in Central America in the 1980s. For years, activist groups have had massive protests at Fort Benning, but 5 years ago, the protests moved to Tucson and Nogales, Arizona, due to the horrible treatment of immigrants attempting to cross the U.S. border. As I mentioned, I've just returned from fact-finding missions to Cuba in January and Venezuela in February, and I will be returning in March as a part of a large international solidarity delegation as the U.S. continues to threaten Cuba with 70 years of sanctions and cutting off oil supplies to the tiny island. In Africa, the U.S. military has conducted many operations in the past 20 years. AFRICOM headquarters is located in Stuttgart, Germany, as no African country would host its presence. U.S. assassin drone strikes continue in Somalia on ISIS, Somalia, and al-Shabaab. In February 2026, the first group of U.S. persons deployment arrived in Nigeria to help Nigerian forces combat Boko Haram and the Islamic militants that continued to kidnap students. But in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, those governments have told the U.S. military to leave their countries. Other countries continue to agree to a presence of military. The largest U.S. military base in Africa is in Djibouti at Camp Lemonnier, which is one of the assassin drone bases. And as I mentioned, Niger recently expelled U.S. troops, but the infrastructure for that base remains. In Kenya, at Manda Bay, U.S. Special Forces operate freely in Kenya and in Somalia. Ghana, Senegal, and Cameroon all have various degrees of Western military presence. So that is a quick overview of U.S. military in both the Latin America and Africa. And again, I want to offer my apologies to the world for what the U.S. government is doing to destabilize and create chaos, death, and destruction throughout the world. Our apologies from U.S. citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. You did that in 7 minutes, which is great. Uh, Next, we will hear from Masoso Antoinette from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Masoso?
Masoso, can you speak? It looks like you're unmuted, but we are not hearing you. You're unmuted, but we're not hearing you. Can you try testing your microphone? I'm sorry, your microphone doesn't seem to be working, although I see you are unmuted, but we can move on to another speaker and try to come back to you.
Yes. We can hear from Dr. Talutu Philomena Zamani from Nigeria.
Philomena?
Hello, everyone.
Yes,
Hello.
we can hear you. Perfect.
You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Philomena Zamani from Nigeria. I would go quickly into give an overview structure of what the conflicts happening in Nigeria. So one of the key conflicts in Nigeria has been the Boko Haram insurgency. It's been one of the dangerous and most deadliest conflicts. It started since 2009 and has Boko Haram means Western education, it's sinful. This movement has since splitted into fractions, the Islamic State, and has led to so many battles. Lives has been lost because of these insurgents, and unfortunately, the government has been able to do anything to ensure that it's been stopped. And the transnational impact of this insurgency has spread all over Lake Chad Basin, drawing in Niger, Chad, and Cameroon. We also have the farmer header crisis, and it has impacted on the Middle Belt states. And kidnapping and banditry has been an alarming issue. So far, over 14,000 people have been kidnapped. Over 25 million, we have lost millions, both women and children. So the dynamics has really been really negatively impacting the people in the communities. Now we have, and it has always, I think it's because of the land and the mineral resources in the country. And one of the things too that, one of the issues is that it's Boko Haram and ISWAP to operate transnationally as around the Lake Chad Basin. International security assistance, we believe that the funding they're being funded from international organizations. However, nobody can pinpoint the international organization funding these people because they are foreigners and they are well armed. I will tell you that they're more armed than the Nigerian army put together, the Nigerian armed forces. And this has really impacted on women and children, like I said. Women often suffer the worst impacts of conflicts, including displacement, loss of family, abduction, and gender-based violence. A number of women have been raped, are widowed, and also children have been orphaned due to this crisis. And a number of organizations, like our organizations, we've been doing a whole lot trying to we're creating awareness. We've run so many awareness campaigns, even with the armed forces, to ensure that there's arms control in the country. We've partnered with ICANN to see how we could, we had meetings with several military institutions and even government institutions to see how we could put an end to this. And using the tool of 1325, we've tried to see how we could enhance women's participation at all levels in the peace processes. If we have women who are in the various arms of government, they could do that. I run a number of trainings, DDR trainings for some of those armed bandits who say they want to drop their arms. And we've gone to communities like Zamfara, political engagements, and we've had a network of women activists who we've campaigned to ensure that these issues are being brought to an end. And so far, we're still on it, trying to see that this conflict comes to an end in Nigeria. Hopefully, we'll see that it does come to an end. And but in summary, I would say that Nigerians' conflict are really multifaceted. It's insurgency, resource-based violence, criminal banditry, intercommunal hostility, and all these have shaped to and impacted on international security and humanitarian engagement. We hope to see that this would end. And like I said, we've been doing a whole lot trying to see that this comes to an end. And hopefully we'll see that it does come to an end. Thank you very much. Hello.
Thank you so much, George. Can you introduce our next speaker?
Oh, I didn't realize I was muted. Is Masoso's audio working yet?
Masoso, can you try to unmute again? Let's give a few seconds to see if it's working. Masoso, you're currently muted. I think we'll have to move on again. Yeah.
Next, we'll hear from Fardosa Elmi from Somalia.
Fardosa's not on the call due to technical issues, so we'll have to move on to the next speaker.
Oh, mercy. Okay. We can hear from Mahassan Dahab from Sudan.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
I'm gonna give a quick overview on the war in Sudan. So yeah, thank you for joining. So today when we're looking at the Sudanese conflict, usually you of course you have heard, statistics of over 12 million displaced persons, a collapse of healthcare system, and then you read about genocide and violence. But what the news doesn't actually tell you that this is a war on Sudanese women. So calling the war on Sudan the world's worst humanitarian crisis, but for women and girls, but to understand why we have to look beyond the map of front lines and look at the map of power. Using a decolonial lens, we refuse to see Sudanese, women simply as victims waiting for saving. It means we look at the global politics, the flow of weapons from foreign actors, the exclusion of women from peace talks, and it is directly fueling the violence we face. In the next few minutes, I want to talk you through three things: the reality of violence on the ground, the visible systems of survival women have built, and why the international peace process that is curated by the US Peace Council is failing Sudanese women. So first, the violence. It's not a collateral damage. Reports from the UN fact-finding mission confirm that sexual violence is being used as a deliberate method of warfare in Sudan. In places like Khartoum, Jazeera, Darfur, and along the line where the Rapid Support Forces, which is backed by United Arab Emirates, um, have controlled these locations, we've seen masses of conflict-related sexual violence cases. Over, five thousand cases have been documented, but we know this is a vast undercount due to the stigma and terror. We are talking about rape here, gang rape, and sexual torture, but there is a complexity to it. So women, like if you're using a decolonial lens, it will reveal that Sudanese women face a double burden. On the one side, the rapid support forces are responsible for a widespread of atrocities. On the other side, in areas controlled by the Sudanese armed forces, Sudanese women are being detained on suspicion of collaboration, often with the rapid support forces, often based solely on their ethnicity or even their association, or maybe a soldier showed interest in a woman, so she's automatically detained under that suspicion of collaborating with the rapid support forces. Um, and yeah. So on the second part, the invisible architects of survival. When we talk about resilience, um, if you only focus on the violence, we miss the story of power. So these women are not just surviving; they are rebuilding society from the ground up. In displacement camps, women are breaking every traditional norm. They have become the sole breadwinners, taking on grueling labor like wood cutting and opening markets and joining trades. And this was considered strictly men's work prior to the violence in 2023. More importantly, Sudanese women are sustaining life through grassroots network. While the world focuses on international aid, local women are running community kitchens and emergency response rooms. They are reviving ancient systems of support, um, like a SILEF, a traditional rotating savings and mutual aid system to pool resources and care for the vulnerable in their community. And we cannot forget the traditional midwives. With the hospitals bombed, these women are using bed sheets and supplies and delivering babies on the roadside. They are the invisible health system holding the country together with no resources and no recognition. To view this through a decolonial lens is to recognize that the solution to this crisis already exists within these communities. The question is, will the world fund them or ignore them? This brings me to the final point, peace. Right now, the international efforts are focused on getting generals back to the table. But here is a fatal flaw. Women are being systematically excluded from these discussions. In the Jeddah talks, female participants were reportedly interrupted, ignored, and sidelined. Their proposals for ceasefire, monitoring, and civilian protection were dismantled. This isn't just unjust, it's strategically stupid. I'm sorry for using that. We have decades of data proving that peace agreements are 35% more likely to last at least 15 years when women are involved. A decolonial critique forces us to ask, why are we only talking to the people with the guns? Why are we ignoring the people that are keeping the communities alive? By focusing only on military power sharing, the international community is building peace on a foundation of sand. They are ignoring the destruction of the social fabric, the lack of schools, the trauma of survivors, the collapse of the healthcare system, which are issues women are fighting to address every single day. To conclude, the war on Sudanese women is a war waged by armed men, enabled by foreign actors, supplying the weapons, and ignored by the global community that refuses to listen to women. But Sudanese women are not waiting for permission to act. We are feeding the hungry, delivering the babies, and documenting the atrocities. If you take one thing away from me today, let it be supporting Sudan means trusting Sudanese women. It means demanding an immediate ceasefire, expanding the arms embargo, and most importantly, insisting that women are at the center of every peace negotiation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Masoso, are you able to speak to us? Unmute yourself and speak to us. Okay. Well, we'll hear now from Diana Salcedo Lopez from Colombia. Diana?
Hola,
Yeah.
buenas.
Hello. Good morning, good day, good evening to everybody who's connected. I am Adriana Salcedo Lopez from Colombia. I want to tell you a little bit about what's happening at this corner of the world. We in Colombia, as you know, 2016, we have a peace accord. We won accord signed one of the biggest groups. But 10 years after this, we find that there's a context that reflects the continuity of violence, social conflict that we live in Colombia, particularly is reflected in the increase of forced removals and violence, lethal violence, massacres. And this affects the entire civil populations, particularly these last years in 2024, 2025. We have had a context in which the actual government has tried to generate peace talks with these illegal armed groups, which has meant that there has been substantial decrease in war actions in Colombia, specifically because the logic of war has been moved by illegal economies and also by the dialogue that we have, that many countries have been pushing about the war against the drug war, and it affects many armed groups in Colombia. Just to mention some, in 2025, in some various regions of Colombia, Cacumbo, there was approximately 100,000 people displaced inside the region after a year of intense confrontations between these illegal armed groups. And the Defense of the People said that last year, more than 159,000 people were displaced intermittently in the different areas of the country. The Office of National Resources in Colombia said that that more than 1.6 people have been affected by the armed conflict, which has increased year by year before 2024. So it's the same as it was in 2024. So there's also been some advances in implementing the peace accords and the establishment of politics that guarantee the lives of people. But Colombia lives an armed conflict with multiple actors, social actors that have taken in these last years have an increase affecting the people, murders against leaders, men and women, social leaders. There has been an increase specifically against the people who do defending human rights. And there's been some forced recruitment in the communities that has been increased in the last few years in Colombia. In this context of conflict and humanitarian problems that we have, they're increasing. We also have to reflect on the impact that the politics from the exiled and the impacts there have been to people repatriating Colombian women, and also, of course, the movement of other countries that go through Colombia, and the effects in life have an important impact in women and in children. Thank you very much for your time, and I will listen in.
Thank you, Diana. And thank you for ending in time. Next, we will hear from Asmara Hernandez Beleño from Cuba.
Osmeda, you can unmute. Perfect. We can hear you.
Good afternoon from Cuba. We send a warm welcome to all of you who are at this group. It's a pleasure to be able to share with you what is happening in Cuba, what is the people who fundamentally are affecting the Cuban people, but particularly the women who are the ones that carry the weight of the brother-in-law, the family, and the revolution, internal revolution. Cuba is a country that for over 60 years have felt the impact of the blockade, of the economic blockade, commercial, financial, of the United States against Cuba. And with more than 80% of the Cuban men and women who have been born under these impacts, which are every year getting worse. As a matter of fact, events and complex situations that the country has had to live through, for example, the pandemic, COVID-19, the government of the United States did not remove not one single sanction. More than 240 increased during the pandemic of 2019, and also as different hurricanes that went through, meteorological events, that Cuba has suffered as a country. It's a small, insulated country, island, and all of the suffered all of these meteorological events. I have to say that for Cubans, the blockade, the financial blockade by the United States is the number one form of violence against Cuba, because it is us Cuban women who have to face the permanent lack of items, sanitary products, cleaning products that are indispensable for Cuban women. Even though Cuba has a health service that is great for everyone, but right now a group of programs that the Cuban administration since 1959 has been affected by the impact of all of these situations, these politics that have been going on for all of these years against the country. Just for an example, we say that the blockade, without a doubt, reinforces the system against us. For people who don't know, we have a lot of needs for the women, for opportunities, the autonomy, and it hurts this in private, where the great majority of Cuban women are the ones that carry reproduction and sustainability of life. The blockade is not just suffocating the nation, but also for the development of women in Cuba. The participation that women have achieved after all these years and the high presence of these sectors in society also allows women, impacts women, not only in private, but also in the public arena. There are lacks, there's needs, and a need cannot be able to develop their professions in labor market. Also to say that talking about health, there has been a lack of products or contraceptive methods, even though we have a right to, since 1967, Cuban women have the right to interrupt a pregnancy. This is a right that many people have not have yet. But however, in Cuba, we're having a lot of problems we're not getting contraceptive devices or pills. There's a lot of things that we get for gestation to make sure that like vitamins, folic acid, and other things that women may have a right to receive, and to have a diagnostics, to have tests, medical tests done. All of this being affected because during these years, especially in the last measures that the government of the United States has been applied, there's a program in Cuba that we have spread around the world. It is a program that is aimed at infertile couples that after many years have tried to get treatment. In Cuba, we have 4 specialty centers where right now that is being affected. The impossibility of getting a way to culture embryos, and it reduces the treatment for people who cannot conceive. So this is reflected by the lack of access, the lack of advanced medical treatment, fertility, and also the state of reproduction. There's another program in Cuba for infants. For many years, Cuba has had a 5.7 rate of infant mortality, but after 2025, this program was affected greatly. In fact, it has increased for that we haven't seen in 20 years. Cuba started this program with 7.2 for children. This program has been very effective. The same way, the main cause of death of children of less than a year has been exactly because of the lack of supplies and methods to be able to detect the problems. And this is because of the blockade, because there are medical places that don't work because they're missing a part, and because of the blockade, a majority of the components come from the United States, and it's very hard to find replacement parts that might not have a 10% coming from the United States, and that will impede it coming.
Osmata, right now, your time is over.
Ya terminó tu tiempo. Ya terminé. Okay, thank you.
Okay. We haven't heard from Masoso yet? No?
I don't think Masosa was on the call anymore.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, we'll hear from Argelia Bendanzos from Mexico. Argelia.
Hello. Yes, here I am. Good afternoon to everyone. Can you hear me?
See.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much. First, I want to thank you for this invitation, to thank all of the words that all of the different women have already said from their geographies. Thank you for sharing the realities of the countries that are not so different from all the other countries. And I want to say that my participation is from the life of original women in Mexico, especially in the state of Oaxaca, and very particularly in our community, original community, Mazateca, which is called Clan de Flores. We are Mazateca women, and for over a decade, we've made the decision to defend our liberty, to defend our territory, because it just didn't happen now, but for over 40 years now in the community, just like many places, the majority of indigenous places in Mexico, we decided to retake and, in fact, to go against the state rules to reclaim our ancestral ancestry and to bring it to the public area. In 1984, the Zapatista Army for National Liberation, but before they arose, a year before, the women of Chiapas, the women Zapatistas, they gave a law for indigenous women or by indigenous women, recognizing the capacity, the right of women to organize themselves. For us as Mazatec communities, the Zapatista Army, National Liberation, their women are still the great reference point, because in Mexico, the subject had not been touched with original people if it wasn't for that great uprising. But what has happened since then? Two different ways of living and facing community lives run parallel. On one state, there's the state, the government policies. They had to recognize that it was true that Mexico is a pluricultural place. And from the political state, there was our second article in the Mexican Constitution to recognize our rights. But the state politics have been very limited. For us, it is a great sadness that even though Mexico has had a transition in their government from one regime to another, apparently the original communities, we resent the same politics as if there had been no regime change. Our territory is threatened, our right to defend water, the rivers, the mountains, all of that is threatened. Currently, there is a mining activity that is not about the minerals like gold and silver, but they are found in what you may find on your handheld devices or your computers. I'm talking about sand. Sand is something that is wanted all over the world for any kind of technology construction, but also for other civil works. 10 years ago, the river was being threatened because it was plundered illegally, but that illegal plundering was not isolated. This plundering ends up at to the government of our state of Oaxaca. It is not isolated because the people who are doing the plundering belong to the state government. One of the people is a deputy, and there's plundering in order to be used so that nobody says it's happening. The people in the community have been repressed. So for the last 12 years, they're making up very powerful crimes against 50 people. We could have stopped our struggle and not be, there's 33 families that left in the first phase, but the heart of the Mazateca families is very large, and we decided to make calls to other women, to other ethnic groups from the across the country, other latitudes. So after 12 years, we did the struggle, the fight. We have 50 people who are being being pursued because the state did not want the women to state their independence. And in 2025, they issued 200 orders of arrest and they should not be accused of now. But we're seeing a Mexican state that, even though has a woman president, that she has failed in the justice, in all of justice, from the national level. There are cracks in the structural justice system. The prosecutors are not doing the jobs. The new reform, the judicial reform, who put new judges, are judges that have been recommended in our community. The president, the mayors told the community who they were supposed to vote for. And this happened in the entire state of Oaxaca. We're not talking about a democratic reform in the strict sense for Mexican judges. And this is very worrying because there is a lack of justice. We are women who are outside of jail. We are women outside of courts. The women who are looking for their loved ones, that are demanding for the justice for so many people, for thousands of people that have disappeared. And the women and the Mazateca women are the ones that are suffering. Good. Thank you very much for listening. I want to tell you that the case of an area like ours is not a local case. It is a case that impacts national politics. And these months are very important to demand the government of Mexico to end this criminalization, to recognize that the women we have said that these accusations are not real, that they're trying to make an example of us, that a community does not have a right to defend their territory. This is in the 21st century. This is a contradiction from the states saying that they protect indigenous communities. Thank you very much. You can follow us on our network, Mazatecas for la Libertad, or on Facebook, Presos Políticos, and Lopez Maron, Oaxaca. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, we'll have, I believe this is our last speaker, Marietta Borrego from Venezuela. I know you're, yeah.
Sí.
Colleagues, you hear me? Yes. First, I want to be grateful to all the people who are connected and have given us their valuable time to hear what the struggle of women means. As sustainers of life and the givers of hope, I want to talk to you from the heart of a country that's going through a political process right now. That these hard times are confusing, but we have dignity. This is not a new dignity. We have this in our heart, in our blood. We have a resistance that goes back to our independence struggle, where our women were a fundamental piece, from the women who made up armies to had weapons. We are the daughters of the nation, but we're the ones that did not fold in front of the empire. So, as you know, last January 3rd, the United States attacked that morning. Venezuela woke up to find all of things in a couple of states, in Guaya and Miranda. This was not just attack against our infrastructure. This was a harpoon to our heart. The imperialism was able to take their masks off. They took their masks down, and they kidnapped Nicolas Maduro and the first combatants of the Flores. It was a very confusing time for us. We heard the cry of mothers. It was a terrible moment. And it is that we did not expect to see this, to talk about it. We didn't imagined that this would happen. But as the slogan says, in front of repression and barbary, we do not lay down, we mobilize and we go forward. To understand our resistance, the world should know that Venezuelan women have been a familiar target for economic repression. There were a lot of problem attacks, economic attacks. They weren't just numbers on paper. There was an attack that generated attack on our health. And we have to talk about this because these are still affecting the economy of my country. Nonetheless, in front of this blockade, women started creative resistance, women in communities and communes. We organized ourselves with food, with services. When all of this economic attacks were supposed to make us give up through hunger, we today, in front of this new aggression and the kidnapping of our leaders, we still have that same resistance. We have a political vanguard. We are not on our knees here in Venezuela. It's important that everybody knows that workers, young people, old people, there have been people who are fighting the empire. In Venezuela, Chavismo still reigns. Chavismo has not stopped being just an electoral option, but it is an identity. It is a class consciousness. The power lives in the people, organized people. That's our heritage, and this is something that has helped us get through to be able to govern through what we are going through right now. But we also want you to know that we manifest our support and total support to our president, who is in charge of the country now. She has had firmness as she has taken the reins of the economy and the defense of the fatherland at this exceptional time. She's been doing this with the situation that's going now, redistribution of the states. She is spending money to give attention to the people. And as all of these are going down, she is handling it with a diplomacy, with all of these pressures against her. This represents the ability to command from Venezuelan women, revolutionary women. We know what loyalty is. And I should also say that this loyalty is a very heavy weight. We, the Venezuelan women, have always been problems of racism, of statism. In 2024, unfortunately, we had two Chavista martyrs, Selena Flores, Selena Hill, and Mayari. These were women that were martyred. And I also want to tell my sisters, everything has happened to our leader, Celia Flores. Not only is she the first lady, the first combatant, she is a woman that made his revolution. And we had to denounce the physical aggression against her when she was kidnapped, where her face was hit, where her ribs were broken. They attacked her, but there she was. And she is continuing the struggle along with Nicolas Maduro. I want to tell you that this aggression that our first combatant suffered, we women organized into a national movement for peace that has her name, Celia Flores. And in a few days here in Caracas, Venezuela, we will receive the first International Brigade of Women for Peace that also has her name, to demand Sylvia's release, to demand the freedom from our president to take Venezuela to where it needs to be. This is our commitment for us to against this people who are trying to justify their actions And to end up, I just wanted to share that we do not want to be here asking for compassion. We don't want you to feel compassion for us or to be sad. But what we want is to ask you solidarity. We hope that you can gather in your countries, in your areas, wherever you are, to the call, bring them back. This is what we say in Caracas. And we want our sisters' voices to be heard in the street to make a call. And we are sure we will win. The peace of our country will happen. This is the hope of everybody in Venezuela. And when our leaders return, we hope to be there. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're going to try one more time with Masoso. I see you there, Masoso. Let's see if we can hear you.
Thank you for another chance you give to me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I want to talk in a few words because I'm late. I'm so sorry because my microphone. I want to talk about situation of women, girls, and children during conflict in East Democratic Republic of Congo. Background: for almost 30 years, the eastern part of Democratic of Congo has been affected by armed conflict. Women, girls, and children are many victims of this prolonged war. Women, girls are victims of systematic sexual violence, widespread rape and sexual violence. 2,702 cases are sexual violence rated. 73,400 cases previously reported nationally. Many survivors remain silent due to the fear and stigma, lack of healthcare and support, limited access to healthcare services, shortage and shanty medicine, post-report treatment, HIV prevention, contraction, no psychological support, serious physical and psychological consequences, displacement, economic hardships, mass displacement of population, loss of livelihood, increasing poverty and dependence, mother unable to provide food for their children, community intervention, cooking porridge for children, elder, and pregnant women. Children are as victims of conflict, lack of education. 37,500 children out of school in 2025. Insecurity prevent access to education, food insecurity and malnutrition. Lack of food leading to serious malnutrition. Family unable to meet basic needs. Consequence of conflict. Reduction of maternal and reproduction health services, increasing poverty and economic dependence, great exposure of women and girls to abuse, long-term physical and psychological trauma. Key action needs: treat, care, and support for survival of violence, ensure access to essential medicine and psychological services, improve food assistance for vulnerable families, advocate for the safe return for children to school. This situation remains critical and requires urgent corrective action to protect and support women, children affected by conflict in the DRC. And you will see in my presentation there are photos, pictures, what we were doing in 3 years ago for our contribution to cooking porridge for kids and women, pregnant women. You will see the photos beside of this short summary. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Masoso. I'm so glad that we could finally hear from you.
Thank you.
So we have a few minutes where we can have some questions and answers, and I see many questions have come in. We'll try to get to as many of them as possible. So the first question is for Philomena. Philomena, how do we connect with people who want to let go of their arms, who want to disarm? What do they say for their reasons for carrying arms, and how can you support them to disarm?
So thank you very much for the question. One of the reasons is poverty. Now, when this crisis lingers, a number of these armed soldiers are young boys, underaged young boys, and the reason why this is carried out is because they say it's poverty. Some of them are indoctrinated. And so one of the reasons, what we do is that I run the mediation as part of this, where I do trauma healing and counseling. And this process, it's the demobilization, disarmament, and reintegration. And so these young boys are being gotten from these very communities, like in Nasarawa, because of where the and Zamfara. And so they are all in this DDR program is being carried out in the military establishments. So if you want to meet them, I don't know how we'll do that. You want to come around, or because I don't think the military will want to have that data. But I can give you a contact with who is in touch. That's the head of who runs the program, because you know that the DDR program is a 6-month program, and until they are done, when they reintegrate them into the community, I would if you want the numbers, then I would get in touch with their families to see if they would want to speak to anyone outside.
Okay, thank
Otherwise,
you.
if you want to
Yeah,
have a
and if you
physical
can
meeting,
share
it's
some
fine.
information in the chat, that would be great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we have a question for Diana. Diana, can you speak about the role of the president? Is the president in Colombia helping the situation, particularly about the many thousands of refugees in Colombia? And what is the president doing? Ana Chiara, can you translate that question?
Yes, I guess it's been translated also. Maybe that's why it's taking a bit of time.
Just if you could repeat it in Spanish.
Yeah. ¿Cuál es la situación en Colombia? El presidente está ayudando con refugiados internos.
Diana, are you still with us? You're muted.
Diana, ¿estás aquí?
Oh, maybe she joined on another device. One moment. Diana, I see two Dianas, so I hope one of you can unmute. Okay, well, we'll have to move on, but maybe you can answer that question in the chat if you're not able to unmute. Okay, so there's a question for Mahasin. Mahasin, can you please tell us what the Sudanese people, both in the country and also in the diaspora, feel will end the fighting? What do they think will end the fighting? And can you tell us the trusted organizations that the international community can support to end the conflict and support the victims of war?
Hi, yeah, thank you so much for the question. So there are multiple initiatives that's been at play locally in Sudan. Some of them have a lot to do with the surrender of the rapid support forces to the Sudan armed forces, and an initiation of an all Sudanese discussion around, the path forward. There is little to no, of course, efforts into establishing a process or monitoring mechanisms that will allow peace to actualize in the foreseeable future. For the support and the work for the Sudanese women movement, you can always contact and support grassroots women-led organizations that are doing God's work on the ground. And I can name a few, or maybe I can share my email, or Sean can share my email, and we can get to, understanding how we can support Sudanese women on the ground. The other ways to actually vocalize and pressure that, for to achieve a lasting peace in Sudan, there should be a Sudanese-led discussion with women, civil society actors facilitating the negotiations. It should not be an American imposed process through a peace council that we know does not actually aim for peace. And yeah, that's it. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you. Yeah, and you can put your email in the chat or we can share it afterwards. And there's also a question for all of the speakers. Can you share with us any trusted organizations in each of your countries that are working for peace so that we can get information from them, support them? So we don't have time to go around to everybody, but maybe you can use the chat to share those organizations, share any resources, share your emails, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, and then we can include that in the follow-up email. And there is a question which I'll put to everybody, which is how can we work more with international institutions such as the UN? Is there a way that we can work more with the UN to prevent these violent conflicts? I know that's a big question and we have little time left, but any speaker who would like to unmute and share about that, and particularly about implementing UN Resolution 1325. Is there any speaker that would like to unmute and share about the role of the UN? Don't be shy. You can unmute yourselves.
Hello, that's the role of the UN and
Yes.
1325.
Yes.
Okay. So 1325 is resolution 1325. That so what the UN does as regards 1325 is let me talk about the 5 P's. So which in particular prevention. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Philomena, are you still there? We were hearing you fine.
Okay, so resolution 2025 ensures that women are involved in the peace processes, like the prevention, protection, programs around protection to see that women. And another is that though women can be victims of violence, women can also be perpetrators of violence. And so when we look at prevention, how can we prevent violence against women? So, with WILF in Nigeria and Zamani Foundation, we do a disarm violence against women. And so we run gender-based violence programs. We do the referral pathways where the a case is reported as regards either rape, wife battery, abuse, child work. So for the women, when there's conflict in the community, I'll talk about Kajuru. Kajuru has experienced incessant violence, and those who are most hit by this violence are women. And so we have rape cases, a high rate of rape cases. Now, for prevention, how can we have women in leadership positions where they can help in preventing this violence? So if a woman is in a leadership position, she can help in ensuring that the strategies are being put in place to see how we could curtail or curb this violence. Protection also, how can women be protected from this violence? Prosecution, if in a situation, I'm trying to say it in a layman's language that we all understand. Hello. So for
Yes, we can hear you.
prosecution, when there's a GBV case or in an area of conflict, we have the should I go for
You just cut off at the end, but maybe we do have to move on for the sake of time. But I appreciate your response so much. And if you want to share any further resources in the chat that we can share with the registrants, that would be wonderful.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. So I know we are almost at 90 minutes. We have to close up very soon. I see Teresa has a hand raised, so we'll go to Teresa and then we will go to Sean from International Peace Bureau, who will provide some closing words. And then after that, we will have a final song. So I hope everyone stays on the call because we have a powerful final song at the end. So Teresa, let's hear from you.
Well, I just want to say thanks to everyone for coming, and a special thanks to Greta of World Beyond War and Sean of the International Peace Bureau. This could not happen without their wonderful organization and their many networks around the world in the many countries. And I will urge members of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom who are on the call to please share the recording widely. And I just am so honored to be working with Greta and Sean and how they were able to have these amazing speakers for our webinar today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Teresa. And we'll pass it to Sean for our closing words.
Yeah, one more time, a huge thank you to all of our speakers today. And I'm very aware that I am a man now speaking at the end of an amazing panel of women, so I will keep my own remarks very short here. Just to say a big thank you to all. I think we've learned a lot of important lessons. We've seen women's leadership roles in conflict zones throughout Latin America and Africa today. There's comments also for further events highlighting women in other parts of the world as well, and to hopefully build off of this work that we've been doing for a longer term network that is highlighting and lifting up the women peace builders that are doing so much. As our speakers have identified here, women really are the key to making peace. Without women's leadership, without active inclusion and leadership by women in peace processes, in mutual aid and support networks around the world, in caring for one another and caring for everyone, including women's care for men, is extremely important to ensuring that we have a peaceful future. And we from International Peace Bureau, World Beyond War, the Southern Anti-Racism Network, and all the other supporters, organizations that are here today, I think we are all very committed to make sure that we are supporting and raising up these women's voices beyond our event today, continually with our work to create peace. So thank you all very much. We move forward together and we have a lot more work to do.